Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today on Chapter by Chapter, we are on chapter 13 and it's a Nina chapter. We begin the chapter with Nina and Han, tall girl, trying to keep each other awake because they still don't feel quite comfortable at this sausage party lodge, meat fest lodge.
Meat lodge?
They don't feel comfortable at this lodge where they're surrounded by these men. So they're just, resting, and once one of them gets to the point of exhaustion, the other one starts asking questions. We learn that Han loves cream buns with vanilla custard, and we know Nina, can get on board with that. She has a secret taste for gruesome horror novels. And most surprising of all, she is very fond of sewing. Surprised me, surprised Nina, probably surprised you. This is an activity you think the well mother would approve of, but no. The well mother thinks that needlework is for ladies, but sewing should be left to the servants.
Opinion should be left somewhere, that's for sure.
Finally, morning comes, and all of these guys are like, hey, can we take you to your destination so we can get paid? And it's Han who comes up with the genius idea to tell them, sure, come with us, please escort us. We're actually stopping at the convent on the way though. They will be glad to perform the scot on you there. And immediately the guys are like,
No,
we actually have business elsewhere. We're fine. We'll collect our money from your fiance, safe travels. Apparently the men are so appalled by the idea of the scot because it requires 3 months of celibacy and a ritual cleansing with lye soap to clear the spirit. So that took care of that. Since the snowstorm has stopped, they have no problem finding Audric on their way back. Audric has to be pretend upset that Han is wearing pants. Nina wonders if Han will get in trouble since they were out the entire night. But luckily Han volunteered to go get the water, which we know is far away. So the well mother will just be really happy that Han didn't die of exposure. Nina's curious why Han's friends didn't volunteer to come with her. But to Han, getting out in nature and going for rides is different to her. Her friends think of dressing up in the soldiers' uniforms as just that, it's dress up. But to Han, it gives her a sense of freedom. Not only is Han unique in this way that, she longs for freedom, she longs to be outside, to be by herself, but she's 19, which is close to Nina's age and, isn't old at all, but to Fjordan's, she's an old maid. She's unmarried and still a novice at the convent with no intentions of taking her vows. It's obvious to Nina that Han is really eager to take one last ride, to have one last sense of freedom before she has to head back. Han's like, how can you even tell that? And Nina says that she can see it in her eyes. She can read it in her body language. She's telling 1,000 stories before she even opens her mouth. So Han asks Nina, what other stories am I telling you? And Nina goes into this whole, I'm gonna tell you how wonderful and pretty and special you are thing, which I think she has a little crush on her. Nina observes that Han is a really strong person, but she's afraid to let anyone see it. She tries to hide herself so much that she actually hunches to make herself seem smaller. And she's only at ease when she thinks that nobody's watching. When she's in that moment, Nina says she's
glorious.
Han's like, I know what I look like, come on. Nina wonders, do you really know what you look like? Because these Ravkins would just be falling at your feet. They would write songs of her beauty and her might, and Nina might be the first to do so. But that would lead to too many questions. And I have some questions right now, Nina. Do you have a crush on Han? I need to know. It seems like you do.
And I love it.
I don't know, I think to go from Matthias to Han would be pretty nice, but at the same time, Han seems really naive and a little full of herself and immature because she doesn't really know how to handle her powers, and she really hasn't been able to come into herself and know who she is like Nina has.
R.I.P. Matthias.
And Nina lets Han know she's not going to tell anyone who she really is. Han takes this as Nina doing her a favor in a way, but Nina's guilty because she's not doing Han any favors. She's trying to find her in at the convent. And Han learning to control her powers comes up again whenever she asks Nina what happened to her Grisha sister. She tells her, oh, she, learned how to control her powers and lived happily ever after.
Very convenient.
The reason Nina knows all about Grisha power and how to use them and control them, she says is because there was a suspect that she might have the powers too, so she would have to learn how to control them if they came out. So what's the best way to cover up your Grisha lessons? The many lessons. Han rides away, looking back at Nina, thinking, how can anyone be so kind? Because Han hasn't had a lot of kindness in her life. But Nina's just using Han, and her duty lies to those women and girls on the mountain. Nina isn't totally, one-sided in this. She's offering Han some help and maybe even an out, and it's up to her to take that and use it. Finally, Nina and Audric are on their way back to the convent. They make it back safely. They were only gone one night, but to Nina and to me, it felt like they were gone much longer because so much had happened in such a short period of time. The burial of Matthias, Trassel, and Han all happened in one night. They're taking their horses to the stable and they find Leonie huddled in a corner. She's trying to stay away from prying eyes while she tests the freaky water that they found. But Leonie isn't having a good time either. She might have accidentally poisoned herself. She may have absorbed some into her own body. And this is... oh, it's not Ravka. It's Firida, but there's still bad news. The girl that Leonie saved that fell off her horse when all the girls were playing soldiers, she died. Nina's like,
some more bad news. Yeah.
I know some weird stuff is going on because I found a bunch of graves up behind the factory and I got bit by a wolf. Audric thinks she's joking. He's like, yeah, sure, you got bit by a wolf. And Nina's like, I got bit by a wolf. But even crazier than Nina just getting bit by a wolf, she says that she felt like the bite had parem in it. Audric is worried right away that, oh gosh, does this trigger anything with your addiction? But she actually feels good. She wasn't worried about, having a relapse at all. Even if it wasn't parem that was in the wolf bite, it felt very similar to it. So, is my theory right that they're trying to make their own weird version of parem up at the factory? That's what's getting into the water. And that's what makes the wolves all freaky. Audric's concerned that Leonie might be having some effect of parem, but Nina says, oh, she's not doing anything creepy and weird and freaky and, then dying. So I think she's okay. Leonie doesn't think it's parem either. She says there's something corrosive in the water. I looked up corrosive because I was like, I feel like this will help me. Corrosion is a natural process that converts refined metal to a more chemically stable form.
Yes, I looked that up on the internet.
Tell me who knows, dictionary definition of corrosion off the top of their head. So this makes me think, okay, are they the ones maybe working for the shoe? Do they have this rare, refined metal? Even Nina's like, oh, what's all that water for? Are they corroding this rare alloy and doing something with it to help make the Kurgud? Or is this their way of making their own parem with some type of metal? I don't
know.
I have questions. I want to know what's happening. And there's, more questions like, why didn't Nina tell them about the graves? Nina finally has to tell the truth that it was the dead that led her to the graves. And the dead women and girls need their help. After they're settling in for the night, Nina takes a plate of food and she puts it out near the edge of the forest in hopes that Trassel will come and eat it and that he'll come back to her. She's even like, oh, some ungrateful animal is going to eat this. It won't be him. But I hope it's him. And just standing there at the edge of the forest, she can see the factory. She just knows poison is in that place. But exactly how far does it go? And I'm thinking, oh, it goes to the well mother. Like, I'm pretty sure she knows what's going on. The very next morning, Nina gets a summons from good old well mother. Because of Nina's history with not really sticking to the plan and following orders, he lets her know that, hey, you have to do what I tell you. You can't act on anything until I say so. And I think our time is, best used elsewhere. And don't ruin your cover. Nina's just thinking, Audric has no idea what she can handle. She went through all of those jobs for Kaz. She handled everything at the ice court. She's a tough girl. She knows how to handle herself. And she lets Audric know that. She really thinks that Han is their best possible chance at finding an inn at the convent. And that will help them learn what's going on at the factory. Nina reminds him that Han's Grisha and they're supposed to be helping people like her, even if she may not want that help right away. And some more
suspect stuff going on.
Only the spring maidens have access to the factory. They're the only people in town who have access to it.
Something's up with the well mother.
On Nina's way to see the well mother, she has to pass through the chapel. It's not like Ravkan churches. There's no altar, no painted scenes of saints. There's just this massive tree that's sprawling across the front of the chapel, and its roots extend to the front of the pews.
Gels ash fed by the wellspring.
Wellspring that's being poisoned currently. I don't know how happy he's gonna be about that. Nina's looking at this tree and she's thinking, whose prayers do you hear? Is it the words of soldiers? Is it all of the Grisha you have locked up in Jarlbroom's cells? This leads the whispers in her head to sigh. She's not sure if they're sighing in regret or in longing. So I'm wondering if it's the Grisha. She mentions, do you hear the Grisha's prayers? What if they sighed because it is regret and longing? These women were praying to their god. These terrifying moments, like who knows what was going on that led to their deaths. Nina makes it to the well mother's office. But even though I'm suspicious of the well mother's like to Nina, I can't pay you right. So what are your motives here for trying to teach Han, who might be impossible to teach this language? So Nina has to butter up the well mother. She's like, I'm sick of traveling with this couple. I'd rather just stay and be a tutor. And a recommendation from the well mother would just look great for me. The well mother's very into flattery, but she isn't buttered up too much because she looks at Han and lets her know that she expects her to still do her chores and not disappoint her father by becoming a burden to the institution. At this point though, Nina and Han are just relieved that the well mother said yes. Han says that the well mother considers her one of her greatest failures. She's 19, she's unmarried, no prospects of taking the vow, no signs calling her to Gel. And Han isn't even sure if Gel would be interested in a girl like her, who goes against all the Fjordan ways. And then Nina has to break it to Han that you're actually gonna have to learn a little bit of Zemeni just to keep up this ruse we're putting on. But then she hops right into the first fighting stance that Grisha taught. Nina starts with the basics. She's teaching Han to use her power on herself. And she's really surprised at how much of a natural Han is at this. But Tall Girl is surprised when she hears Nina use the word natural in regards to her, because everything about her has been said to be unnatural her whole life. I feel really bad for Han because she tells Nina that when she was young, her father longed for a son, so he would take her hunting and fishing and taught her how to take care of herself and be out in the wild. He took her everywhere with him. But then when she got to the age where she was supposed to settle down and be a good Fjordan woman and start looking for a husband, she wasn't ready to let all of that go. She wasn't ready to be presented to court, and as much as she tried, she just couldn't shake her love of the outdoors and that freedom. So they called her unnatural, and she tried to change herself over and over and over again, but just kept failing. And if the well mother can never fix her, then she can never go back home again. Han's options are sad. It's either finally leaving the convent and going out on her own and living in exile, or she has to just kind of suck it up and take these vows that she never wants to take, or find a way to fit in. Han even makes a comment about wishing that her powers were different so that she could melt the ice court from the inside out. These are blasphemous words in Fjordan, but Nina reassures her by being like, that'd be one heck of a puddle. So Nina asks her, if there were no consequences to your actions, what would you do if you could do anything right now? She said that she would actually move to Neuvi's Yem and hire herself out as a sharpshooter because it's something she's really good at. But she could never let herself do that because the thought of never seeing her parents again and disappointing them is just too much for her. And Nina wants to comfort her in this moment of vulnerability and tell her to come to Ravka and why hearttrenders are the best, but she has to hold everything back and get this information first. Her priority is those girls on the mountain. Nina keeps pushing Han, saying, well, the well mother's gonna catch you or you're gonna get caught. You better watch out, One of these days you're gonna get in trouble. And this just leads Han to keep boasting about herself like, nope, I'm never gonna get caught. I know where the keys are. I have clothes hidden all over the place. I know when who's asleep to get out of here. I know every creak and every floor. I'm never going to get caught. This leaves Han feeling pretty smug. And Nina has the information that she needs. She knows that Han is in fact their way in like she thought. And with that, she's like, okay, let's just get back to work. And that's the end of the chapter. I'm wondering, is Han going to first find out that Nina is using her? Or is Nina going to break first and be the one to tell her of their plans and that she's undercover? Because I think it's obvious at least Nina has a bit of a crush on her. So That's tricky. And I'm, well, mother is suspect. She's sus. I don't trust her at all. She's a new apparat. She's a new quiet guy, Don't trust her at all. She's the well mother. She's the one who's supposed to be like very holy about Delge and his wellspring and the water. Like,
wellspring, well mother, like,
you're supposed to take care of that. You're just letting these guys come in and poison everything. And you were in a convent full of women, and all of these women are dying. You mean to tell me in the small town, like, you don't notice that? I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And even evil well mother aside, what is going on with the water and the corrosion in it? And the wolf bites having a feel of parem to them? Wolves are holy to the Fjordans. So are they testing parem on these wolves? Is that why they're all shaky and skinny and weird? To them, Grisha are unholy, but they're using this drug that hypes up Grisha power on one of the most holy creatures. What are the Fjordans doing? They're like selling their souls to get this technology that they never had before. Poisoning their water, they're poisoning their wolves. This would just break Matthias's heart. I'm sad now. And thank you for joining me for another rendition of Chapter by Chapter. As usual, this Nina chapter leaves me with a ton of questions on my mind, and still right now her chapters are the most exciting. I feel like what's going on with her and Fjorda could be a separate book unto itself, and I would love the mystery of it all. Can't wait to see you guys next time.